Now let us move on to specification number 2. This part asks us to understand that continuous variation results in a range of phenotypes between two extremes, including body length and body mass. Now, phenotypic variation can be divided into two main types, depending on how the traits are measured and grouped. The first type is continuous variation. In this type, traits show a full range of values, and individuals cannot be placed into separate clear groups. Instead, they gradually vary from one form to another. The second type is discontinuous variation. In this type, traits fall into distinct categories, and individuals can be placed into clear groups with no intermediate forms between them. These two categories help us understand how different characteristics are expressed in living organisms and how they vary within a population. We define it as, continuous variation is a type of variation in which individuals of the same species show a range of small and gradual differences in a particular trait. These differences form a continuous spectrum between two extremes, rather than falling into separate groups. Continuous variation occurs when a trait shows many small and gradual differences between individuals. These differences can be measured and arranged along a continuous scale, rather than being placed into fixed groups. Traits that show continuous variation are usually controlled by many genes working together, a condition known as polygenic inheritance. In addition to genes, environmental factors can also influence these traits, making the variation even more diverse. For example, height in humans is a trait that shows continuous variation because people can have any height within a range. Skin color also varies gradually, from very fair to very dark, with many intermediate shades in between. Similarly, body weight does not fall into fixed categories but varies continuously across individuals. Finger length is another example, where lengths change gradually rather than forming distinct groups. In plants, fruit size can also vary depending on genetic potential as well as environmental conditions such as water availability, sunlight, and nutrients. When continuous variation is plotted on a graph, it usually forms a bell-shaped curve. This shows that most individuals have intermediate values, while only a small number of individuals show very extreme traits at either end of the range. Continuous variation is influenced by both genetic and environmental factors. From a genetic point of view, traits showing continuous variation are usually controlled by several pairs of alleles. For example, height can be influenced by multiple genes. Each dominant allele contributes a small effect towards increasing height. Therefore, an individual who inherits a greater number of dominant alleles may become taller, while someone with more recessive alleles may be shorter. Environmental factors also play an important role in continuous variation. For instance, a person may have the genes for tall growth, but if they experience poor nutrition during development, they may not reach their full height potential. Other traits such as physique, intelligence, skin color, and hair color are also influenced by both genetic makeup and environmental conditions. This means their final appearance is not determined by genes alone. When continuous traits are represented on a graph, they usually form a bell-shaped curve. This shows that most individuals have intermediate values, while only a few individuals show very extreme traits at either end of the range. In summary, continuous variation involves gradual differences in traits that are influenced by both genes and the environment, and these traits can be measured and shown on a continuous scale. Now, this graph represents continuous variation in human height, which is a characteristic influenced by many genes as well as environmental factors. The bars in the graph form a histogram. These bars show the frequency of individuals within specific height ranges. For example, the tallest bar represents the most common height group, which is around 167.5 cm to 170 cm, and it includes the largest number of individuals, about 14,000 men in this case. On top of the bars, there is a smooth curved line known as a normal distribution curve. This curve helps us understand the overall pattern of the data. It shows that most individuals are clustered around the average height in the middle of the graph. As we move away from the average towards the extremes, meaning very short or very tall heights, the number of individuals decreases. This is why the curve becomes lower at both ends. This type of graph also shows that height is continuous data. Unlike discontinuous variation, where traits fall into clear categories, continuous variation changes gradually with no sharp boundaries between groups.